So I'm back with another video as part of this new series on my channel, which is all about just using the makeup that I own, getting out some eyeshadow palettes, getting them into rotation and just using them. And I really do need to find a catchier title for this new series on my channel, but I suppose using your makeup, it does what it says on the tin. So the next palette as part of this series is from Vieve. This is the Muse palette. This is the second eyeshadow palette that Jamie Genevieve came out with. And this is a very beautiful, pretty, girly, romantic palette full of pinks and purples, but in my opinion more wearable pinks and purples in comparison to, say, the ABH Norvina palette. This one feels a little bit more mature, a little bit more grown up. They're not so in your face pink and purple, they're a little bit more understated, mostly warm tones in here as well, and you have a mixture of mostly mattes and then you have 3 shimmers within this palette as well. Beautiful palette. I love the quality of the Vieve palettes. This one performs a bit better than the Essentials one because the shimmers in the Essential palette aren't the best, but the formula of the shimmer shades within this palette are better. So in my opinion, this palette performs just that slightly bit better than the Essentials palette does. And I haven't actually put together a look solely from this palette in a long time, so I'm going to zoom you in and we will see what kind of look I can come up with. As always, priming my eyelids first, MAC Paint Pot in Painterly, just a really good nude beige for my skin tone. And what I really like about this palette, you have a big, massive mirror, and this palette completely folds over as well. So you've got your shades one side and your mirror the other side. So you can hold it up in portrait, in landscape, whatever works for you. But yeah, the mirrors in these two palettes are so good. Alright, I'm going to set that with the shade Peony, which is this really light peachy pink. I usually go for like a nude ivory shade to set my eyelids, whereas this one is just slightly pinker, slightly peachier, but it still does a really good job of being like a base shade for any eyeshadow over the top. This shade is also one of the shades I'm panning as part of my Pan in Every Eyeshadow Palette challenge going on. You do get a bit of kickback in this palette, not as much as, say, the ABH palettes, but still enough. But you don't get any fallout on your face, which is good. So I don't mind a bit of kickback in a palette, as long as that doesn't translate to it falling down my face. Now for a really super simple day look, you can just leave it there because that colour just provides a really nice little bit of, like I say, pink and peach to your eyelids. But obviously that would be a very boring video if I was to stop there, so I am going to add some more, and I think I need to increase the light on my ring light a bit. There we go. Is that better? Hopefully that's a little bit better. Okay, next I am going to go for Bow, which I think is the better crease shade in this palette for me. And I'm using this on a really big fluffy brush. And I've mentioned about these eyeshadows from Vieve before. They are so incredibly easy to work with. They kind of like blend themselves. They're really buttery and smooth. I don't really have any problems with patchiness with these eyeshadows. On a slightly denser fluffy brush, so this is the Zoeva Luxe Petite Crease, I'm going to go for Sauce, which seems like a darker, richer version of Bow up there. So I'm going to focus this one underneath it, a bit more in the crease line, in my socket line, just to give that crease a little bit more dimension. I'm going to put some of Merlot in the outer corner of my eye. This isn't a shade I've used too much of, and I think this one is a little bit, yes, it's a little bit purple, and I tend to not really go for pinks and purples, but obviously with this palette can't really escape that. But like I say, this is more wearable than some of the other sort of pinks and purples you get in palettes. So like for example Norvina, very bright shimmery pinks and purples in this palette, whereas this one is that bit more subdued. So this is the first one of the videos in this series where I'm not going for my usual brown gold eye. And these shades are fairly easy to build up as well, so they are very pigmented, but it's not a huge whack of pigment where you put it on and you're like, oh god, I've got to blend that out. They're so easy to work with. I'm really not talented at all with eyeshadow, but this palette and the Essentials palette makes it easier to do your eyeshadow. So I want to go for shimmer next, and there are 3 shimmers within this palette. You've got this really light pink, like an icy pink. You've got a dark warm purple. That one looks really beautiful on green eyes. I was actually trying to pan that one at the start of my pan in every eyeshadow palette challenge. It looked really lovely on my green eyes. It really made the green pop, but I just found it a little bit too dark personally, and I don't really wear a lot of dark shadows. And then also what I find interesting, you have a gold one called Finery, so you don't have to purely stick to pinks and purples. If you want something a little bit more neutral perhaps, then you have that really bright gold shimmer in there. So interesting that they decided to put that shade within this palette, but it really does work with the shades. I'm not going to go for that because like I say, I tend to go for kind of brown gold eyes anyway, and I'm not doing that in this video. So I'm going to go for Divine, the light icy pink, and I'm going to try with my finger, and I can't remember if finger or brush is better with this, but this is applying fine actually, so yeah, I think finger, and that's usually the case with shimmers. I felt a little bit drop onto my face, onto my cheek, but actually I can't really see anything. And to be honest, with a shade like this, if it does drop on your face, treat it like highlighter. You know what, I struggle with this palette when it comes to the pan in every eyeshadow palette challenge. I always get really low numbers for my usage of these pans. But when I put a look together entirely from within this palette, I don't understand why that is, because this is looking, hopefully you'll agree, really pretty. I really like that. I think I just need a little bit more of that Merlot shade on this eye. It doesn't seem as strong as in comparison with my left eye. Okay, I'm gonna go for some of Bow, which was my initial crease shade. I'm gonna take some of that under the lower lash line. Now for my inner corner highlight shade, I'd usually go for a shade like Divine, something really, really light. But because I want to use as many shades as possible from within this palette to show you guys what they're like, I am going to use some of Finery, that yellow gold shade, and hopefully that doesn't look really weird with the rest of the look. Yeah, it would look better with Divine, but I've done one eye, I'm doing the other. It doesn't look bad, but yeah, Divine would look a little bit better, but just showing you again what the other shades look like. Okay, so I'm going to use the darker shade within this palette, which is Velvet, as my eyeliner. I have, this isn't an actual eyeliner brush because I think I broke mine. This is a brow one, but it does the job fine. My hand is shaking. Stop shaking. Yeah, that shade works really well as an eyeliner. Sometimes with darker shades, when you use them as an eyeliner, they're a bit patchy. They don't really tend to show up over the top, especially when you've got like a shimmer shade down, but that one does work really well. So hopefully you can see that this isn't like a hugely girly kind of that obvious really bright bubblegum baby sort of like pinks and purples. It is more toned down, it is more wearable, it's a little bit more possibly mauve like as well. So I'm just going to finish up with a little bit of mascara. I think I'm happy with my lips. My lips are NYX lip liner in Peekaboo Neutral, and then my Kiko 04 lip gloss, which is like a pinky peach coral shade with a bit of shimmer in it, and together I think they make a really lovely sort of neutral light pink lip. So yeah, I'm just going to put some mascara on and I'll be right back. And then that's with a couple of coats of my usual brown mascara that I wear. So I have the L'Oreal Telescopic Sky High brown mascara, and then the Maybelline Snap Mascara as well over the top. And then this is how it looks a little bit further away. So I really like this one. I like this look. I think it's very pretty. It's slightly girly still, but it's possibly a little bit more romantic, a little bit kind of more grown up than the types of looks that I would create from something, say Norvina, if I was to use the pinks and purples in that palette. So I think I need to get this palette out a bit more and play with it a bit more, because I think where I like my browns and my golds and my coppers, I look at this palette and go, well, that's just pinks and purples. But you can make something a little bit more, I suppose, more natural, less typically pink and purple, as in like bubblegum pink and really girly, really sort of very bright pinks and purples looks. You can go for something a lot more kind of toned down, a bit more muted, a bit more kind of earthy with the pinks and purples, which is very much my kind of preference with these tones, is to go for earthier versions. So yeah, I quite like that one, and it makes a kind of a nice change to not go for my browns for a change. Don't get me wrong, I still love my browns, and that is what I will wear 99% of the time, but a look like this I quite like. So thanks so much again guys for watching. Hope you are enjoying this challenge, and hopefully it is inspiring you to use some of your lesser known makeup, your lesser used makeup. If you did like it, please do give it a thumbs up. Please also subscribe if you haven't as well. It would be lovely to have you here, and I will see you again very soon for my next video. Bye.